I just discovered Herdr, which is marketed as a Tmux for agents. And what that means is that it's a terminal multiplexer, so you're able to manage multiple terminal programs from a single screen. And this is solving a critical AI workflow problem that I've been having. And that is being able to start a really long coding session on my terminal, close my laptop, walk away, come back, and resume that session. And not only that, Herdr has this really nice UI, well, TUI, that's interactable with the mouse, but it also has all these Tmux primitives so that you can interact it with your keyboards as well. It's like a win-win situation. It's fantastic. But instead of me just raving about this, why don't I just show you what it looks like? So yeah, this is the default screen for Herdr. It's a terminal application, so it'll work on just about any application. And you can see here that you got workspaces that they've shortened to spaces here on the left-hand side. You can create multiple of these using the new button or keyboard shortcuts, if you will. And then you can even right-click to rename them, to close them, all that kind of stuff. Inside of these spaces, you have your panes. Now, you have tabs inside of these panes too, or you can just right-click and split vertical, split horizontal, all these really cool stuff. You can drag these borders to resize them. It's really cool. But the real kind of cool part about Herdr is its integration with AI agents. And the way that works is you just spin one up. So let's do Claude. Let's do Codex. And you can see here in the left-hand side here that the navbar has an agents tab. And when I created these coding agents, they showed up. So they have these like really cool integrations so that when your agents are working, it updates the status so that when it finishes, you get a cool little notification that says, hey, come back and continue your work. So let me show you how that works. Let's do say hello back to me after 4 seconds. And immediately when I sent that off, the status will update it to working. And now there's a few different statuses here. Idle is the default one, obviously, but it does switch to working. And then if you have questions that are demanding your attention immediately, then it has a blocker status as well. So let's try something like that. Now the Mac OS notification usually requires a permission on Codex. And so here you can see that it's asking for permissions, and this is a super common problem that a lot of people who are using coding harnesses face. You just kind of start a prompt, you walk away, you come back, you're like, oh shoot, it hasn't done anything, right? So in these cases, you get a ping from the notification. I'm not sure if you guys heard that, but there was a ping. And not only that, the visual status updates to block so that it's super clear that, hey, this agent needs attention. So yeah, that's a really cool feature to have in your Tmux-like instance. And speaking of Tmux, like I said, it shares the same primitives as Tmux. So you're able to use your prefix keys. If you're not familiar with Tmux, basically, you're able to navigate the entire terminal application without ever lifting your hands from the keyboard. So here I can do Control B, and that puts me into navigate mode. So now I can use my arrow keys to kind of move back and forth from different panes, move up and down my spaces here. You can see on the top left here. And if I do question mark here while I'm in the command mode, it shows me the keyboard binds. And these are all configurable as well. So if you're a subscriber to my channel, and if you're not, you totally should, because I make a lot of content that covers fresh software releases like this. So if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely do subscribe. But if you are a regular viewer, you're probably aware that I have a video on Cmux that looks pretty much like this. And this is what my Cmux looks like. You've got tabs on the left-hand side, and inside of panes here, you're able to create multiple terminals. It's very similar, but the main difference here is that Cmux is a native Mac OS application. It has its own application process. Herdr is a terminal application, so it will run on pretty much any terminal application that you're using. So you can pretty much use whatever you're most comfortable with. The other thing is that Cmux has a built-in browser that you are able to programmatically control. Herdr doesn't have that, but the nice thing about Herdr is if I do Control B and Q, I'm able to exit my Herdr session and type Herdr back to get back into this session, and that makes it a persistent session. Now, the really cool thing about this is that now I am able to start a Herdr session on my Ubuntu laptop that I have running full time. It's kind of off the screen to my left here. It handles some of my server workloads, and now it can handle all my coding tasks that I know is going to take a couple of hours to finish. I can spin that off, go take lunch, come back, or if I wanted to, I can spin it up, go to a coffee shop, use VPN to connect back to my home network, and then use Herdr to connect back into that session. So let me show you how that works. So I have a computer on my network. I can SSH into it. It's a HS Macaroni. I name all my computers in my home after pastas. I've got macaroni, linguine, spaghetti, tortellini. I'm a huge fan of pasta, so I name all my servers after pasta. But if I SSH into it, I can also use Herdr. And this is a session that I spun up way before I started recording this video. In this case, I've obviously SSH'd into it first and then started the Herdr instance. But here's the cool thing. Let me go back out, exit out of my SSH session, and then use Herdr --remote HS macaroni. Now this is reading through my SSH host config, so your scenario is going to be a little bit different if you don't have this set up. But when I do that, it creates, or it hooks into that session, but directly through my host machine without having to go through that SSH process. So this is a super nice way for me to be able to asynchronize my coding sessions, and I'm super happy I found this software because this is exactly what I'm looking for. So now I can hear all of you guys asking, hey, this sounds great. How do I get started? The install is super easy. The downside, unfortunately, is that Herdr exposes a Unix socket. So that kind of means that you are limited to Unix operating systems. So that's going to be your Mac and Ubuntu or any other Linux servers. But to install this, you just go to the website, you run the curl command, and that's it. It's really simple. But just for fun, let me show you what that looks like. So I've copied the command, and once it's completed, all you have to do is type Herdr, Herdr. Now, you'll notice that there is no second E to Herdr, and that's because unfortunately, in this time and age, inflation has kind of caught up to a lot of people here. The second E is really expensive, so a lot of companies are dropping that E. So just be mindful if you do talk to the maintainers. It is a hard time for all of us. But yeah, to start your session, you just run Herdr, and that will take us back to that session that we have created. But if you don't have a running session, it will create a default one for you. You can list all the existing Herdr sessions through Herdr session list. And if you look at the Herdr session commands, you'll see that it has all the operations to be able to create and delete and all that kind of stuff. Now, I've got a really cool feature to show you. It's to do with agent orchestration. So I mentioned earlier that Herdr has a Unix socket, and what that allows us to do is to be able to modify Herdr directly inside of our CLI. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if you run Herdr workspace, we have list, create, get, rename, and close. And if we do Herdr workspace list, it dumps a JSON of all the workspaces that we already have in our default workspace. So it's able to create more workspaces, read workspaces, and there's also a command for Herdr pane. Now, pane is super important because now you're able to use the Herdr CLI to create more panes, and inside of those panes, you can send keys, and you can also wait for specific conditions to be reached inside of those panes as well. So that allows you to use Herdr as your agent orchestration layer so that your Claude Code or Codex or Open Code or what have you is able to use Herdr CLI to spin up more panes and instances of the coding agents directly inside of that session. So let me show you how that works. Now I'm just cleaning up my panes here. If you are using this for the first time, you'll probably be wondering, how on earth do I close a pane? You can always use that helper. So Control B question mark will open up the keyboard bindings, and I show you this already. But to kill a pane, you're going to do Control B and X. Anyway, let's open up Codex again. At this point, Codex doesn't really know what Herdr is, so I'm going to tell it to go read the help on that command so that it can orient itself and learn how it works. And honestly, this is seriously cool to be able to, take a new CLI and just like feed it to an AI, and it just like learns it and kind of figures it out. Super cool. And I'm just going to preemptively prompt it. Use the CLI to spin up 2 Codex instances, and inside of those, look up for the capital of South Korea and also France. Make sure to use this workspace. Now, I don't know if that last command is going to work. Last time I tried this command, it actually spun up a different workspace. So I do want to see if it is able to use the current workspace. Now, I do want to take this time to tell you that, this is a relatively new software. I think they've been in active development for the past couple of months. They're gaining a lot of traction, but this does mean that the software can be a little bit buggy here and there. So what I personally noticed that made it a little bit challenging for me to record this video was that when I ran some of these commands inside of Claude Code, the statuses were not actually matching up perfectly. So there was that issue, but the Codex was working fine. So I'm just kind of showing you all of this in Codex. But as I was talking, you can see that, Codex, it was using the pane commands to split, and it's creating 2 versions here. Obviously this one we already had before, so I'm just gonna close this. So this is a fun experiment. It's using Codex CLI directly, so it's not really going into the interactive mode. I did a previous run with this where I used Claude Code and I was doing it flawlessly. So maybe I'll try again with Claude Code, but this is hilarious. Obviously, when I'm recording, things go wrong. I'm probably not going to edit this out, but it screwed it up enough times that it's spun up a third instance here. That's hilarious. Let's try out a different angle. Spin up Claude Code instead. Use interactive mode. And I do apologize, guys. Claude Code did work for me in the past, but we had that kind of like state error, so I chose to do it on Codex this time. I'm sure your experience will be a little bit better once you kind of iterate with this and kind of refine your prompts. I would honestly recommend that you get your coding agent to read through the documentation, read through the CLI commands, and make a skill out of it so that you have a repeatable process to be able to spin up these panes directly. Once you have that skill set up, this should be so much easier going forward. But yeah, this looks like it's done the job correctly. It's spun up 2 different Claude Code instances. Look up the capital of South Korea. Seoul is the correct place. And there's another one here. It's got France and Paris, exactly what we're looking for. So it's perfect. So at this point, you might be wondering, hey, what's really the point of having all these abilities to be able to create panes? What's the point of agent orchestration? I'm sure there's tons of different videos out there, but just to kind of answer that question, the idea here is that you have one main orchestrating AI agent, and this AI agent is able to delegate some of these tasks to different agents so that you're able to do multiple coding sessions at the same time. Or if you go the other way, which is to use multiple agents to improve the quality of a single coding session, you're able to use maybe like a planning agent, a coding agent, a reviewing agent, like QA agent, all these kind of different agents so that they kind of collaborate on a single instance. Agent orchestration is a bit of a can of worms when it comes to like what it can do. I would suggest that you just kind of play around with it. A lot of different coding agents are kind of coming up with their implementation of agent orchestration, but it's just really nice having a tool that is able to kind of support it out of the box. Now, the one downside of Herdr is that compared to Cmux, it doesn't have a built-in browser, and because of that, it doesn't really have eyes to kind of see what it's doing. Obviously, if you have skills inside of your agent harness that is able to use, stuff like Playwright or Chrome DevTools, MCP, that will do just fine as well. If you're running Herdr inside of Cmux, you also have access to the Cmux CLI, so you can use a Cmux browser like that. But the downside there is that you're now not able to kind of use that detach, attach kind of functionality to be able to kind of go in and out as easily. That persistence feature is kind of the biggest selling point for me, so that to me is a bit of a letdown, but still there's a workaround it. The other kind of pitfall here is that my biggest complaint of Tmux originally has been the fact that you have to learn a lot of keyboard shortcuts. Now with Herdr, that's not exactly the case, but there's still cases you're gonna want to reach for some of these keyboard shortcuts, like right-clicking it and splitting it is functional, not ideal. Cmux has, that button that you can press. So if you go back to Cmux here, you're able to create splits with these buttons here. And I think that's just a nicer improvement. There's a possibility that as this product matures, that the developers are going to add more features to make the UX nicer around some of these kind of edge cases. But yeah, for the meanwhile, you are kind of stuck to what it is for now. But I will say it is a nice software and it's completely free. So, beggars can't be choosers. But yeah, that's the end of this video. I do like to bring these kind of lesser known new pieces of software to light as soon as possible. If that's the kind of thing that you're looking for, please make sure to subscribe and follow. I make a lot of content that tries to cover these kind of content. But yeah, hope you have a good rest of your week, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye bye.